Shalom. This week's Parashat is Pekudei, which is the end of the book of Shemot and the end of the chapters that deal with the Mishkan. It is worthwhile comparing and contrasting the Mishkan of this week's Parsha to the story in the book of Kings of the establishment of the temple. The temple in Jerusalem, of course, becomes much more influential and important in Judaism than the Mishkan, which is transient. It was basically functioning only in the desert period. And yet, the Torah preserves not the story of the temple in Jerusalem, the Torah preserves the story of the Mishkan. What is the difference between the Mishkan and the temple? There are various differences, but I'd like to focus on one particular difference, and that is the issue of mobility. The mobile Mishkan went from station to station in the desert. It was reassembled, disassembled, and reassembled time and again throughout the different encampments. As opposed to this, the temple in Jerusalem was stationary. The city of Jerusalem was chosen, the place of the Temple Mount was chosen, and thus a permanent fixture, the building of the temple, stood as a symbol of the chosen place. And so we have the symbol of chosen sacred territory, sacred space, which is immovable. And in contrast to this, we have the story of the Mishkan. The Mishkan basically reflects a different concept of sanctity in space. Rather than sanctity in space being immovable, our parasha teaches us about movable space. Sanctity in space, according to the parasha, is something that is determined by the place of the people of Israel. It is not the place that defines the sanctity, it is rather the people and where they are that defines the sanctity. And so we have two concepts, the movable sanctity versus the permanent sanctity. In the history of the modern state of Israel, naturally, the sanctity of the temple was the concept that came to the fore and has been heightened and brought to the greatest sense of centrality. And yet, I believe that it is important for us, especially today, to reevaluate and to newly acknowledge the vital importance of this competing concept of sanctity. Because there are certain dangers to the concept of an immovable sacred spot. This has the danger of turning into a form of idolatry where there is no need for effort, for emphasis on participation of the people. The place is sacred, no matter what, regardless of how people are affected who are around it, or regardless of their participation. Sanctity of space is, so to speak, immovable. And yet, what the sanctity of the Mishkan teaches us is that it is dependent on the people. It moves with the people, it serves the needs of the people where they are, and beyond that, the Mishkan is always built anew. Each time it has to be reconstructed by the efforts of the people and by the contributions of the people. Who builds the temple? The king, the central administration. It's built top down. Who builds the Mishkan? Who gives the money for the Mishkan? The people, the free will of the people. And so today I believe that it is important that we have a new appreciation for the centrality of peoplehood and its place in defining sanctity of space. Shabbat Shalom.